Hello, I'm Jack. And I'm Jack. And we just saw Avatar 2 and the Chamber of Secrets. Jack, what did you think of Avatar 2, Much Water? I thought it was fine. Yeah, I did not hate it. Well, that's high praise. I mean, it kind of is, because I thought I would get a headache with the 3D and the high frame rate. We saw it in IMAX 3D, for those who are curious, and you can see it in 2D, but it's kind of like playing a PS5 game on a Shrek TV. You're not getting the most out of it. But this kind of segues beautifully into what I hated most about the movie. Has nothing to do with the characters, the plot, even the 3D, and we'll talk about all of that. But my biggest problem with this film can be summed up in 3 words: variable frame rate. Okay, yeah, I think I know where you're going with this. Right, so the film is projected at 48 frames per second. Most movies you see are, of course, in 24 frames per second, and I'm fine with the higher frame rate. I am. I think it works great for action scenes. You get more data, more information about a scene. I don't have a problem with high frame rate. What I do have a problem with is how frequently this movie goes back and forth between 24 frames and 48 frames and 24 frames, because it's all the time. And there's not any like rhyme or reason for it. It's not like all the action scenes are 48 frames and all the dialogue scenes are 24. Sometimes it goes back and forth in the same scene, and I found it hugely distracting. In fact, I brought a notepad in the theater with me. Oh my God, you actually have a notepad, like an old-timey reporter hungry for their next big scoop. Yeah, well, yes, I wanted to take notes so I wouldn't forget anything. Plus, I didn't want to be that guy in the movie theater typing notes on a phone with a glowing screen. That's funny. My wife will IMDb actors from the movie while we're watching the movie. No. Well, that's just rude, and you must be a saint for putting up with that. But back to my little notepad here. I wrote down several times variable frame rate, because that's how distracting it was for me. What else do you write in there? Oh, I have pages of notes. Let me see. Preview of Mission Impossible 8. Tom Cruise will die from Evel Knievel stunt. That was just one of the coming attractions before the movie. Train explosion like cutscene. There's a scene early on in the movie where a train gets derailed and blowed up, and it reminded me of an in-engine video game cutscene. But that's not a bad thing. I don't mean that as like a snide remark, because the whole movie is the world's most expensive, gorgeous in-engine video game cutscene. Size diff is cool. So I think what I was trying to say with this, and bear in mind, I was a few drinks in by this point, but I like the scenes where the 9-foot-tall avatars interact with the 6-foot-tall humans, and you can see how much bigger their hands are and their heads are. I loved that. Trajan font intros us to new areas like an espionage film. So first of all, I meant to say papyrus. I got the font name wrong, but I was amused whenever we were shown a new location and the movie tries to tell us these locations as if we'll remember these made-up names, like the Timbuktu strongholds. More teenage angst, because there are teenage avatars now, and we get to see Jake Sully's 4 kids, because at the end of the day, Jack, it's about family. Need more Norm. So I don't know when I wrote this, by the way, but Norm is the character from the first film that shows up in the new one like twice. Barely says or does anything of note, so I think I was lamenting that. Peed once halfway. So just a reminder, this is a 3-hour plus movie. If you go during the halfway point, you should be fine. New unobtainium stops aging. Right, so there's a new unobtainium element in this movie. It's some liquid they extract from space whales. Like relatively late in the movie, they talk about this precious liquid that's worth $80 million a vial, and it just felt like a lazier MacGuffin than unobtainium. There's a bit of a The Force Awakens effect where we're retreading a lot of familiar territory from the previous movie. For example, again, humans are harvesting natural resources from an indigenous Na'vi population. Our main characters have to learn the ways and cultures of a new people. The entire third act is just a huge showdown between humans and aliens. And spoilers, even the villain's the same. The evil Colonel from the first movie is back, but in Avatar form. That one didn't bother me so much because he was one of the best parts of the first movie. And I feel like having him back, but as an Avatar, is a natural progression story-wise. He's a more formidable foe. It works. What else did I write down? Less ugly crying than first. Yeah, I feel like the first Avatar film had an abundance of just really ugly crying scenes, and there's way less of that in the new movie, which is a huge plus for me. I can eat all my popcorn much easier without someone scream crying at me. Humans are bad. Yeah, this movie will make you feel really guilty for being human. Oh, good, because I don't feel bad enough about myself. I'm glad this movie can lecture me on how evil I am. So in regards to the movie's plot, when you step back and look at it from a distance, it feels very safe. Mr. and Mrs. Blue have a family now, and they're being pursued by the evil Colonel antagonist. So they flee to a new tribe, a new clan that's all water-based, and the Solis have to learn how to swim real good. And then, of course, Colonel Badman shows up with this evil human henchman. A big fight ensues, and our heroes win. That's a terrible summary of Avatar 2 and the spiders from Mars. No, that's a pretty accurate summary, but what you forgot to mention was how important it was for Kate Winslet to learn how to hold her breath underwater for 7 minutes. Didn't all the actors have to do that? Like, learn how to hold their breath for 10 minutes? So like what David Blaine did, but for real? Wait, Jack, are you saying that you don't think David Blaine can actually hold his breath for 17 minutes? Let's just say I find it suspect, Jack, that a literal magician holds the world record for holding one's breath underwater. Call me a skeptic. No, the underwater scenes are done really well. There's one scene where one of the Sully kids is evading a shark-like creature, and he's maneuvering around and under coral reef systems, and that was the scene that made me go, oh, that's why they had to train so hard, because you can't animate that. You have to mocap that to make it look real, which is what the movie does spectacularly. Well, let's be clear. You're not watching this movie for the plot. Oh, no, not at all. You have to see this movie on the biggest 3D screen you can find. Otherwise, it's not worth the effort. So I read somewhere that in order for this movie to break even, it has to be either the 4th or 5th highest grossing film of all time. Just to break even. Right. Do you think that will happen? What's funny is it honestly might, just because of the hype around it. And it's weird because there wasn't this hype like a year ago. Out of curiosity, do you know what the top 5 grossing films are? I actually have a list right here. Number 1 is Avatar, of course, then Endgame, then Titanic, which is the only one from the 90s that's in the top 40. Probably because it was in theaters for like 9 months. Then number 4 is The Force Awakens, and number 5 is Infinity War. Okay, so financially, this movie has to do better than the biggest Star Wars movie of all time, or the second biggest Marvel movie of all time, just to break even. Did you see this video from a few years ago? There are these guys, they were doing like a man on the street kind of bit, and they went up to random people and they asked, can you name a character from the Star Wars movies or the Marvel movies? And of course they could. And then they said, for $5, name one character from the movie Avatar, and no one could do it. I did see that. Do you know whatever happened to that YouTuber? He either died or fell off. Same thing. But the basic principle behind that video is pretty flawed, right? Because there are 20 Star Wars films and 40 Marvel movies. Of course, we can name characters from those. But at the time of that video, there was only one Avatar movie. So of course they couldn't name anyone. Only now can you call Avatar a franchise. Well, why do you think that James Cameron, this late in his career, is so intent on making 5 films in this universe? Like, why now? Well, he wants to make more than 5. Really? He has plans for Avatars 6 and 7. Wait, are you... I can't tell if you're joking or not. No, this is real. He wants to make more. I think forever. So why do you think that is? Well, I'll tell you what I don't think. I don't think it's as simple as he saw how well the Marvel movies are doing and wants to replicate their success with his own universe. No, I think he actually does have like a passion for the deep sea. And I read somewhere that the only reason he keeps making these Avatar movies is to fund his submarines and deep sea excursions. Well, the problem there is these movies all have to be absolute bangers, like every time. Each new Avatar film has to be just about the highest grossing film ever. And I don't think he can do that 4 times in a row. And commenters, please come back to this video in like 2032 when we're at Avatar 9 all grown up. And please tell me how wrong I am. Maybe James Cameron will buy Twitter and he'll make it so that you can only post tweets in the Na'vi language. And you can't log in unless you can name 5 Avatar characters. Ooh, let's do that. After 2 Avatar films, how many characters can you now name? Oh God. Okay. Jake Sully, Neytiri, Colonel General Sergeant Badman, Norm. I only know Norm because the other day someone tweeted at me, "Get Normed, lol," and it made me laugh. So now Norm is my favorite Avatar character. Here's hoping for Avatar 8, The Quest for Norm. So Jack, would you recommend Avatar 2, Lost in New York? Yes, I would recommend it. Just make sure that you've seen Avatar 1 first, but I mean, you've had 13 years to see it. At least it's not like a Marvel movie. For example, in order to enjoy Thor 4, you'd have to have watched Thors 1 through 3, also Avengers 1 through 4, and Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. Jack, nobody enjoyed Thor 4. I know. Well, how about you, Jack? Would you recommend Avatar 2, Wetter, Wilder, and Uncensored? I would. Yeah, if you're home for the holidays and you're stuck with your family, you're looking for an excuse to get out, this is a good way to escape your boomer uncle who thinks that the world's too woke. Or you want to get away from your Zoomer cousins who don't think the world is woke enough. Hey, remember 13 years ago when the first Avatar movie came out and people got actual depression when they found out Pandora wasn't real? Those are the exact same people who are going to see Avatar 2 Rise of the Machines, but they won't know when to pee during the 3-hour runtime because the whole movie's just too good. I predict many bladders will burst this holiday season. Who am I talking to?